Hi there, Acadia owners. Today in your 2019 GMC Acadia, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's Direct Connect baseplate. There's 5 main components you'll need when flat towing your vehicle behind your motorhome. You'll need your tow bar, which is the connection between your motorhome and your vehicle. You'll need your baseplate, which is the connection point your tow bar is going to attach on your vehicle. You'll need your diode wiring, which is going to take all the lights on your motorhome and transfer them to the lights at the back of your vehicle. You'll need your safety cables, which is a supplemental connection in addition to your tow bar, as well as your braking system, which will apply the brakes in our vehicle when we hit the brakes in our motorhome. And this is what our baseplate looks like when it's installed. It's hidden beneath the fascia, so you're really just going to see the connection points here and the safety chain connections there. There's also a mounting location for your wiring, so we can get that mounted up easily without having to drill into the vehicle, as well as location to mount your breakaway switch for your braking system. So again, we don't have to do any drilling. It's nice that they provided all that for us. When you're ready to use your baseplate and connect it to your motorhome, you'll want to put in the removable arms. It's nice that these are removable because when you're not flat towing, you can minimize how much sticks out of the front. But these will just slide in and then twist until they lock into place. This is our direct connect for our tow bar, which will just slide in and connect with a pin, as well as holes on the side, which keeps your pin locked into place with the locking tab. When you're ready to use your tow bar, you'll want to slide it into your receiver. I do want to point out a couple of things on this tow bar though, because our customer has decided to upgrade and use a tow defender, which provides a sheet across the top to keep any rocks and road debris from flying up onto the vehicle. That's going to be this bracket here, where the tow defender will attach around the tow bar. And you'll also see brackets that we've got loosely installed here on our arms. These bolts are ones that come with the tow defender. They replace the original existing ones because they're slightly longer to accommodate for these. So we'll take our tow bar, we're going to slide it in, lining up the hole in the tow bar with the hole in our receiver. And then we can slide our hitch pin through. The hitch pin comes included with your tow bar. Sometimes you have to kind of lift up on the tow bar a little bit to get it to slide through, and then we'll lock it with the clip on the other side. We can then come to our base plate with our tow bar, and we're going to slide the arm in between, and then from the outside in, we'll slide our pin into place, and then lock it on the opposite side with the smaller pin. We'll do the same thing with our other arm here. And once you've got your tow bar connected like this, you can finish connecting the rest of your components for your braking system, your wiring, and anything else you might have, maybe like a tow defender. We've gone ahead and hooked up the rest of our components for our braking system and wiring. All that's left now is to place the vehicle in tow mode and we're ready to hit the road. We'll begin our installation by removing all the bolts at the top with our hood open. There's going to be 3 on each side and 7 in the middle, and we'll take those out with a T15 torque socket. On each side we'll have 4 bolts in the fender liner that we're going to want to remove. You may need to turn the wheel to the left or right to get it out of the way to get these out. We'll use the T15 torque socket again. We can then pull out on our trim piece now, and this will just pop out. We only need it to come out just far enough to where we can get to this separation point right here. And then we can pull back our fender liner, and we're going to remove a bolt found just behind this, right where the 2 centerpieces are, and we're going to remove that bolt using a 7mm socket. There's one on the other side as well, so you'll need to pull this out and your fender liner back to access that one on that side also. When you pull this back, you'll also find one at the bottom that we'll remove with a 7mm socket as well. And it's going to be like that on each side. Underneath, going across the front of the fascia, you're going to have a total of 6 bolts, 2 on each side and 2 in the center. We're going to remove those with a 7mm socket. And then just behind those bolts you removed, you have a cross beam here. There's 3 pillars that connect to this cross beam, and each one will have a bolt that we'll remove with a 7mm socket. On the passenger side, if we push up on our fender liner from underneath, we can reach up and pull down the electrical connector that's located up there. you'll have to push the red locking tab out of the way to disconnect it. So it just pushes up. Then you can press it in as you pull on the white lever to disconnect it. We can then remove our fascia. Starting on one side, we're just going to start peeling it off. And we're just going to work it around towards the center. Once we get that far, we'll do the same thing on the other side. Work it towards the center. And we can come here in the middle, pull out on the bottom, and lift up. And then slowly start to work it away, double checking for any electrical connectors that may be present. If your weather stripping gets a little bit caught on there, these things just pull off the little tabs, just pull them to release them. You can see there's just slots on the bottom. And we'll set it aside where it won't get damaged. With our fascia out of the way, our air dam here is going to be in the way. So I've gone ahead and marked and already started cutting it. We're just using a pair of snips to cut these out. You'll find a diagram in your instructions. We'll have to cut out the other side as well. I'll get these cut out so you can see what it's going to look like afterwards so you know how to make yours match. So I've got them both trimmed out here, and you can see the section that I've got cut out. If you got any rough edges there, you can go back with the file and clean them up, but this part's going to be behind the fascia. Nobody's going to ever see this part. On each side, where our lower subframe connects to the vehicle there, we're going to take out both the upper bolts with a 13mm socket. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. We'll now need to work our base plate into position. The sides go above any lines that you may have, and we'll work inside the frame behind the bumper beam. It is pretty tight. You do got some transmission cooler lines there, so you want to gently work it past those. And we want to line up the hole in the base plate with the hole in the side of the frame. We're going to lift it up and slide a bolt through those on each side. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Those will thread into our handle nuts that we're going to feed into the frame. All of our hardware is going to have red Loctite on it. We slid those bolts through already, so we're going to place the Loctite for these on the handle nuts. If you need some red Loctite, you can get some here at etrailer.com. There's a nice wide opening here that you can easily see in, so we'll just slide our handle nut in there. Sometimes you have to tweak the way it's bent in order to properly fit. And then just thread your bolt onto that handle nut. Then we'll do that on the other side as well. Now these bolts here, we still want to leave them loose so we can maneuver around our base plate, but I'm just going to snug them up just a little bit to make sure that they don't fall out. We'll now take these smaller, long metric bolts that come in the kit. We're going to place Loctite on those and every bolt going forward. We're also going to put small lock washers on them. We'll be using those to attach our side plates. They are side specific. We want the L to be angled down with the holes on the bottom, just like this. And we want the part that angles forward to be at the bottom as well. So this is our driver's side. We'll need to slide it around the base plate that we got up there because it does go on the inside. So we'll work it to the inside like that. Once you've got it on the inside, it's going to attach to the weld nuts that we removed hardware from previously. And it will have a spacer that will go in place behind it. So we're going to take the bolts we prepared, we're going to slide it through, slide our spacer on it, and then thread this right into those weld nuts. It's a little bit easier if you do the inside bolt first and then do the outside one. Once you got it started on this side, we're going to repeat the exact same process over on the other side. On the passenger side, you do have a transmission line that you need to work around, and it will go through the little slot here. We do need to make sure that it's not going to be hitting there when we're all said and done, so you will have to probably bend this line a little bit. Our base plate's still a little loose though, so it's not in its final position. Just keep in mind about this because you don't want to damage this line while you're working. We can now attach our brace we just put into place with our base plate here. You'll just want to hold up on the base plate and push up on the bracket until the two holes line up. It is a tight fit, getting it up in there. Once you get it slid through, you'll just follow it up with a lock washer and a nut. We'll do the same thing on the other side. For our next pieces of hardware, we're going to need to drill, but on the driver's side, our washer bottle's in the way, so there's two bolts we're going to take out with a 10mm socket. And we're drilling into the section actually here at the bottom, this little pinch weld area, but we won't be able to get a straight shot to drill due to that. We just need this to be out of the way enough though for drilling. So really, if you can just take those loose, you could use a screwdriver or just anything that you can find to wedge up underneath there, just to hold it up out of your way. And as long as you can get in to drill, you're good to go. You don't really need to remove it any further. We'll now drill out our holes. We're going to be doing this on each side. I've gone ahead and made the marks. You do have to measure from the front back for your two markings. You'll find those in your instructions. I've gone ahead and marked them, and we want to make sure that they're centered vertically on our pinch weld piece here. We'll then take a 1/2-inch drill bit and drill those out. We've got our holes drilled out, so we're ready to start installing our hardware, but we have these two small bolts here that we put in previously holding our bracket in place. A flat washer goes on those as well. So if we didn't put those on previously, you just want to put those in now before we start putting the rest of our hardware in. We can now take the long bolts, the largest bolts that come in our kit. We are going to go from the outside in, but we do need to make sure we've got a spacer in place between them. So the holes that we drilled, we're going to go in. These spacers can be quite tight, so you may or may not need to tap them in with a hammer. Once you get through your spacer, we're then going to go in to our base plate all the way through. And then on the other side here, we're just going to place on a lock washer followed by a nut. We're going to do the same thing for the other hole on this side, and then we're going to do the exact same thing for both holes that we drill out on the other side. We can now go back and tighten down all of our hardware and then torque it to the specifications found in our instructions. We'll be using a 13mm socket for the smaller bolts and 19mm sockets and wrench for the larger bolts. If your handle nut breaks, you'll want to stick something inside there to hold the handle nut. Pry bars work. Now after everything's tightened down and torqued, you do want to come back over to this transmission line and just check to make sure it's not going to rub on anything. Check around just the area around there, just make sure everything's going to clear, because if this does rub, it may eventually wear through the hose and cause a leak. With everything in place, our base plate installation is now complete. We can reinstall our fascia in reverse order of how we removed it. There is some trimming that is required for our components to pass through, but I do recommend at this time, before you go to put your fascia back on, if you are doing a full flat toe setup, you complete the rest of your other components installation. Having the fascia off is going to make it considerably easier to install your braking system as well as your diodes. So we're going to go ahead and take the opportunity to do that on this vehicle here. And then once we've got all that completed, we'll come back, show you how to cut out your fascia, and we'll get that back on. We can now take the template that comes in our kit, cut it out, and tape it together. The curved lines will match up, and then you cut out the crosshatch area to reveal what we need to cut out. So I've got the template laid on there, and rather than try and hold the template on there and cut this out, It's going to be just a lot easier if I just mark the area that we're going to be removing. So then we're going to take our template over to the other side, we're going to mark it, and then we'll cut it out. The round hole, we'll use a hole saw, and the little hole there, we're just going to use a cutoff wheel for that one. We're now just going to cut this out using an appropriately sized hole saw that matches up with our hole. When cutting into plastic, you often can make a better, cleaner cut if you run the gun in reverse, because it won't dig in, but it will still cut. The hard part about this is that typically you have a pilot hole for your hole saw. To keep it centered, we don't have that luxury here due to the holes that already exist. So you're just going to have to be very careful and gently cut it out. We'll then repeat that on the other side, and then we can cut this out. Again, we're just going to use a cutoff wheel for the small portion there. With this one, it's a good idea to cut just small sections out, lay your template back over top, and then just continue trimming as necessary until it matches your template. And we're just going to use our cutoff wheel to cut this out, and we'll lay the template back over top and double check ourselves. If there's still more we need to trim, then we'll just continue trimming. So we got our template on it, and we can see right through it. There's nothing else we need to trim out, so we're now ready to put it back on the vehicle. Now with an extra set of hands, we're going to lift it into position. When working it in, you will need to feed any wiring through that you have. Our hose, since we have a braking system, is actually going to go out the bottom piece there, but our wiring is going to pass through. And then we'll just work it into position. Once you get everything to fit, you'll just reinstall everything in reverse order of how you removed it. Once you've got your fascia put back into place, we don't want to forget our electrical connector underneath. That just pushes right back into position where we got it from. It'll just slide back together. And then as you go to close the lever, it will draw it back in. When you get the lever fully closed, just double check to make sure it won't pull back apart. If it doesn't, you're all good, and you can push the lock tab back into place. And then you can just clip this back onto the side of the frame where it came from. And that completes our installation of Roadmaster's Direct Connect baseplate on our 2019 GMC Acadia.